Support for Louisiana, the state we're in, is provided by
Entergy Louisiana is strengthening our power grid throughout the state. We're reinforcing infrastructure to prepare for stronger storms, reduce outages, and respond quicker when you do need us, because together we power life.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.
An amendment on November's ballot could help Louisiana keep up its momentum for coastal restoration projects.
And early detection is the key to treating cancer. We'll look at one group offering free screenings to underserved areas.
We're taking you behind the scenes to check out big improvements at the Superdome leading up to several huge events.
And I sit down with Revenue Secretary Richard Nelson to look at his plan to streamline the state's tax structure. Let's get started.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Karen LeBlanc.
And I'm Dorothea Wilson. Much more on those top stories in a moment on this week's edition of Louisiana, the state we're in. But first,
in this week's Beyond the Ballot report, we're digging into an amendment to the state's constitution. The proposal would dedicate funding from renewable energy sources like wind or solar to the state's Coastal Restoration Fund. With money from the 2010 BP oil spill set to run out in the next few years, state leaders want to make sure that we keep making progress on our coastal projects.
State Representative Joseph Ogeron's District 54 encompasses Lafourche and Jefferson parishes. It's home to shrimpers and workers servicing the offshore oil and gas industries out of nearby Port Fourchon. District 54 is the canary in the coal mine for climate change and the poster child for coastal restoration efforts.
It starts at Highway 90, and it's basically the long finger of dry land that extends down towards Port Fourchon and Grand Isle. Whenever a hurricane passes and Port Fourchon has to close completely, it equates to a $500 million per day hit on the nation's gross domestic product. So getting this access for trucks and people back and forth is very important.
Representative Ogeron authored legislation that is the root of Constitutional Amendment Number 1 on the November 5th ballot. It dedicates future revenues from alternative or offshore energy industries to coastal restoration.
The primary purpose of the legislation was basically to fold in all of the above energies beyond oil and gas that would be produced offshore in the Gulf of Mexico, and have any federal revenue that Louisiana receives to also go to coastal protection and restoration.
Louisiana's 50-year, $50 billion coastal restoration master plan faces a future funding shortfall when the Deepwater Horizon oil spill settlement money expires in 2031.
The way it's funded is we really have two sources of revenue, both recurring and non-recurring. On the recurring side, we have state and federal, which is through the state mineral revenue and through GOMESA, the Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act. And that dedicates oil and gas revenue to our coastal restoration and protection projects. On the non-recurring side, we have primarily the Deepwater Horizon spill settlement dollars. Those are the dollars that were dedicated to restoring the areas that were damaged from the Deepwater Horizon spill. And so that's really our largest funding source at this time.
At the federal level, Congressman Bill Cassidy is the lead Republican author of the RISE Act, companion legislation that also dedicates offshore renewable energy revenues to Louisiana's coastal restoration efforts and raises the current GOMESA cap on oil and gas revenue sharing.
It's two federal pieces of legislation that add to federal revenue sharing, offshore wind, renewables, alternative energy, so that states, even on the East Coast, can partake in this.
Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority originated in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. The state entity is charged with developing and implementing coastal protection and restoration efforts, working with federal, state, and local political subdivisions, including levee districts.
Are there other revenue sources that we're looking at to replace the Deepwater Horizon oil spill money?
Yes. We're working hard to look for other alternative revenue sources. An example of that, we are working on some innovative research with the Water Institute of the Gulf to try to find ways to creatively receive revenue from the restoration projects that we build. And so those measures are often called blue carbon, where we're storing and sequestering carbon with the marsh creation projects, with the mangrove projects that we're restoring and building, and then we're hopefully we'll receive revenue from that in the future from companies that are looking to offset their carbon footprint.
Constitutional Amendment Number 1 aims to capitalize on future revenues as renewable energies develop.
In the offshore wind developers' best dreams, it would account to 10 to 15% of what we produce with oil and gas. And that's primarily because you could only get it from the lease sales, which are like bonus bids on the lease sales, as well as wheeling agreements, which is moving energy across boundaries and geopolitical districts and things like that.
Representative Augeron estimates renewable energies could generate about $25 million annually to shore up Louisiana's coastlines.
It's important that we continue to fund the coastal restoration projects to produce the I'm going to call it the incubator marsh area. That is where shrimp and redfish and trout basically grow up. It's the nursery for a very lucrative sportsman's activity here. So I think all of these are tied together, that the offshore energy infrastructure sector needs to take care of the coast, and then the coast will take care of the rest of Louisiana.
Early voting for the November 5th election is underway now and runs through October 29th every day except Sundays. Now, if you are eligible to vote by mail, the deadline to request a mail-in ballot is November 1st. Well, from hashtags to headlines, here's what's trending this week. Superstar Simone Augustus got another huge honor this week.
Yes, she sure did, Karen, and the Baton Rouge native was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame.
With every dribble, there was a rhythm so sweet, like the jazz notes that dance on Bourbon Street. And in every bounce and shot, a battle cry, and in every move, a soulful sigh. Louisiana's spirit thrived in a game that I played, so watch me soar and watch me strive. And in every play, I came alive, so that my dream could survive.
The former LSU and WNBA star credited her family, colleagues, and coaches for pushing her to greatness. Augustus is also featured in the new season of LPB's Behind the Glory. This season, we're highlighting famous figures from horse racing to sports journalism to pro football. You can check it out all on our website. Now, if you're looking for something to do this weekend, the Inaugural Louisiana Shrimp Festival and Shrimp Aid kicks off Sunday in New Orleans. There will be tons of local food, music, and fun to benefit all of our state's shrimpers. Experts will also be there to talk about challenges facing Louisiana's shrimp industry. That's this Sunday from 11 a.m. until 7 at night at the Broadside in New Orleans.
Well, it looks like that's going to be some good food and definitely some good times.
That's right. And speaking of good things, Karen, there are some good things happening for people in rural Louisiana. Now, we understand that it can be challenging for people in those areas to access doctors and specialists. And the Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center is reaching areas where healthcare and resources are scarce through their Prevention on the Go program. For the past 20 years, they've provided free mobile cancer screenings to all those in need. Take a look. According to research done by LSU Medical Centers, Louisiana's cancer incident rates are higher than the national average for all cancers combined. In fact, Louisiana has the third highest rate in the country.
We have consistently been one of the top 5 states from dying from cancer.
Research also reveals that the 85-mile stretch of the Mississippi River between New Orleans and Baton Rouge is known as Cancer Alley.
That's because 95% of its residents are at greater risk of developing cancer due to all of the industrial facilities in the area. These facts are what drove medical professionals like Renee Duffin from the Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center to spring into action and establish Prevention on the Go, a mobile unit designed for early detection to get people the help they need sooner.
Board of directors were very visionary in identifying that we were seeing a lot of late-stage diagnosis of cancer here at our cancer center. And so they wanted to be able to address how we could overcome some of that. And so we all know that the best prevention and the best way to beat cancer is early detection, because the earlier you find cancer, the greater likelihood you will be able to beat it. So we began providing no-cost cancer screenings in the community, targeting the uninsured and the underinsured.
But it doesn't stop with just early detection.
One unique thing about our program is that we don't just screen you. If you have an abnormal finding, we're going to follow you until we resolve that abnormal finding. This year, we added a barbershop bash in 5 different markets where we're targeting African American men for prostate and colorectal cancers. And so we are continuing to grow and expand our services with really being very intentional about the work that we're doing and targeting those areas that are greatest in need.
Right now, Prevention on the Go serves 40 of the 64 parishes in the state, providing over 6,500 cancer screenings per year, and connects patients to medical professionals like Dr. Constance Blunt, who has been working in oncology at Mary Bird Perkins for the past 3 years. Dr. Blunt says the work she does with Prevention on the Go helps her to connect with her community.
As I've grown in my career, we've come to realize that Black women in particular have higher rates of more advanced serious cancers. And when it comes to breast cancer, young Black women have higher rates of disease and then more aggressive forms of cancer like triple-negative cancer. So working with our Prevention on the Go program is really close to my heart because we bring screening to those women in their communities and in their home, and ultimately early detection is the key to preventing those deaths and to getting these women adequate treatment in a timely fashion.
She says since the onset of the Prevention on the Go program, mortality rates have dropped significantly, and she encourages more people to get screened.
I think cancer in general just makes people very fearful, and you're very afraid. Nobody wants to talk about it. You hear the word cancer, you think about death. And I want to kind of let patients know that, yes, it is scary, and it's a very serious thing, but knowledge helps, showing up helps, getting those preventative screening exams can prevent us from dealing with a bigger problem down the line. I want to encourage everyone that if you are not up to date on your cancer screenings, talk to your primary doctor and let's get that done. Also, visit our POGO website, looking for our next event. We'll be happy to help this journey.
And I'm really grateful for doctors like you. You can really see the passion and the compassion for people that comes out. And that's what you need in this industry when you're working with something that is so taboo for people. It's really helpful to have people like you taking care of them. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Governor Jeff Landry and allies are working to build support for major changes to Louisiana's tax structure. He claims the changes will increase take-home pay for everyone in the state while also addressing a looming budget gap. I sat down with Revenue Secretary Richard Nelson to dig deeper into the proposals. Richard, thank you so much for being here. I know that there's a lot going on right now, so I appreciate you being here to talk with us today.
Thanks for having me.
A lot of buzz around a special session. Talk to us a little bit about the plans and the overall goal for that.
The special session will be focused mostly on tax reform. Obviously, I'm the Revenue Secretary. I deal in taxes every day. I know it's most people's favorite topic, favorite thing to talk about. But really, the idea is to fix 2 problems. One is the state is looking at a short-term fiscal cliff of hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to roll off next year when some temporary taxes we had in place for the last 7 years roll off. And so we're trying to address that problem. And then there's also the long-term competitiveness of the state. I mean, seen significant out-migration. People are leaving, kids are leaving to go get better jobs everywhere else. And so we're trying to reverse that trend and try to keep our best and brightest here in Louisiana and actually grow the state.
So talk to us about your plans for that. Now, I know you said that tax reform. What are your plans within tax reform?
Really, we're trying to make a system that is simple, flat, or simple, low, and fair, right? That's how we want our tax system to be structured.
Sure.
And when we look at states that are really succeeding, our southern states around us that are really growing, and we're seeing the businesses and people move there, those are the structures that they either have in place or they're moving toward, is where those taxes are low, simple, and fair. And that's, I would say, the opposite of Louisiana. We have very high rates generally.
Sure.
They're very complicated.
A lot of things come to mind, when you mentioned the state tax on luxury services. What does that look like?
So in order to provide for this income tax cut and stabilize the budget, we're looking at expanding the sales tax base to include some other services than what we do right now. Some of those are dog grooming, landscaping, lobbying, actually, too.
Yeah.
So it's trying to say the economy has moved in a different direction. It used to be everybody would go to the general store and buy their wagon wheel. Well, now we spend more money on services, and so what we're trying to do is capture some of those transactions and then use that money to reduce the income tax rate for everybody else.
A lot of these luxury service, like dog grooming, it's small businesses. So what does that look like for the small business owner?
Sure. So, all the small business, every small business, every snowball stand has to remit sales tax right now, right? And so, if you're a dog groomer and you sell shampoo or a brush or something, you have to submit sales tax on that as well. And so, what we've looked at is, can we try and find some services where there's also that component where some part of it's already taxable, because that kind of simplifies the process.
Let's circle back a little bit and let's talk about how some of the changes or the tax credits or deductions will impact senior citizens on or fixed incomes.
Sure. So there's a couple of really key provisions of the whole plan that will really impact seniors. One is we're trying to eliminate the sales tax on prescription drugs.
Sure.
So currently we're one of the only states that tax prescription drugs. We don't do it at the state level, but the locals actually levy a tax on the prescription drugs. And so we'd like to get rid of that and basically replace that revenue for the locals with some of those services that they'll now be able to tax. The second part is the exemption. We're going to double the exemption on retirement income. So currently we have a $6,000 exemption for retirement income that seniors don't have to pay. So we're going to double that to $12,000. And then finally, we're going to try and double the standard deduction. As part of the constitutional amendment that hopefully the voters will be able to vote on in March, it would actually double the standard deduction for seniors, which would make it from our proposed $12,500 standard deduction for everybody, and it would double to $25,000. I think it's about a third of seniors now would not owe any income tax at all. Wow. So that's a significant change, but I think the best way and the best policy moving forward.
You did mention constitutional amendment, that there will be within that amendment maybe room for changes to allow lawmakers just a little bit more flexibility when it comes to preventing cuts from protected areas or non-protected areas like healthcare and higher education.
The legislature is really tied up by how the Constitution is structured and where all this money goes to dedicated funds, that they don't necessarily have the flexibility to address those. And so that's part of our goal in going into the Constitution and rewriting Article 7, which is the revenue and tax article, and changing that so they actually have more flexibility. They have more control over some of the money so they can spend it where they need to. And there's a couple other elements in that too, is that we would like to give the teachers a permanent pay raise using some of those funds that are locked up currently in the Constitution to pay off some retirement debt. So we help our retired teachers, and we help the current teachers in getting them all a permanent pay raise through that mechanism. And I hear all the time, I don't understand why Louisiana is always at the bottom. Like, why are we, I don't understand. We have all these things. And I like to say Louisiana has a royal flush of resources, right? I mean, we've got, the Mississippi River, the coast, oil and gas, tourism, culture, all of these things, agriculture that any state would kill for. We have like kind of every one of them. And yet we're always at the bottom of all these lists. And people ask, well, why is that? And I think the tax policy, as long as, I know people don't want to talk about it, and I know it's kind of a painful subject to bring up. But it really is what holds us back. And so if we can cast off basically 100 years of bad policy that we've used as we've had to compensate for that policy with all of these resources, right? Now, if we can use the fact that we have all these resources and have good policy, I don't think there's any state in the country that'll beat us. I think we'll be a top 10 state in everything and in every metric in a couple years if we can make these changes.
Thank you so much, Secretary Nelson, for being here with us today. It's been a brilliant time talking to you. It's an honor talking to you. And I'm looking forward to seeing the results of this special session, and I'm hopeful that the result would be a greater Louisiana for us all.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. If you've been to the Superdome in New Orleans over the last few months, you have no doubt noticed big improvements in the iconic venue. Everything from walking space to improved cell phone service.
With the Dome set to host Taylor Swift next weekend, followed by the Super Bowl in February, the $500 million improvements are a welcomed addition for anyone and everyone going to the Dome. LPB's sports correspondent Victor Howell gives us a behind-the-scenes tour of the Dome's new look.
Nothing like coming to an old home with a brand new look, but you feel like that's what we're here talking about here at the Caesars Superdome. And an old friend of mine, good personal friend, Mike Haas, we worked in the business together back in the day. Mike, I appreciate your time.
Sure, I love this place. I love showing it off, man.
Well, you know what, and you've got a lot to show off. We're standing here on the concourse on the 200 level, but the first thing that comes to mind is space.
Right.
The space that we're here. Tell us about the $500 million of renovations that went into. You made the old girl look good.
We did, you know, so the challenge was you had to get all the bells and whistles. You had to find all the bells and whistles on the inside, but you couldn't touch the iconic character of this exterior.
Yep.
So that's the challenge for the architects and the builders. And so what they were able to do is that basically we had ramps on the east and west sideline. So you took those out. That enabled you 100,000+ square feet of unusable space into usable space. This renovation has changed the way people get into the building. We've changed the way they come into the building. We've changed the way they get to the seat. We've changed the viewing experience for many people from their seat. We've changed the way they go to the restroom. We've changed the way they get to concessions and made it better. And we've changed the way and made it more efficient to leave the building. So everything is different, and the response has been fantastic. An important factor of this renovation is the ability to take unusable space and make it usable. So this is a general admission area. We're walking towards Gate C in an area that you've never seen, because now you have this. And this is the Legends Club, and it is 70 yards in length. These were where the ramps were.
Okay.
And so you can't, at the other end of this room is a monitor like this. It's the same, they're in the same club. We're all in the same club. 70 yards. As I say, it's the Derek Carter, Rashid Shaheed touchdown.
Absolutely.
70 yards. And it's what we had was the 200 level hallway. Now you have that plus this. It's just amazing. The Saints are a huge partner in this. The Saints paid 1/3 of this renovation. 1/3 of this renovation. The state is a partner, the LSED, those three, that triangle, and they were able to do this with the fan experience driving the train. It was important for the Saints.
Now we're standing at the top of section 121. The Saints bench for Saints games is on the opposite side. This would be the visitors bench right here. But why we're standing here is because, as Mike's been talking about the expansion, the space, as we saw out in the foyer earlier, there's also some things you did interior, again, going back to the finding space, that even people sitting here in the corner, section 121, are benefiting from the work.
We opened the building up, right? We physically cut out and opened the building up in every corner. This guy in this corner row have never seen these humongous video boards we put in 2016. They've never seen it because of the roof over their head. They came in each corner and took out the inner bowl, literally cut out the inner bowl. And so that enabled everybody here in all these seats to sit and see the video board. Never seen it before.
We're on the 100 level. We started with that beautiful atrium. On the 200 level, we saw some of the seat changes, but Mike, you were saying this is where you really get an idea of just what you were able to do with the expansion. We are on the 100 concourse level. We're on about the 20-yard line from where we're standing. And what you're telling me is where we're standing right now was where it stopped.
Right, this was a concession, right? So it's the same thing on the west side. We're on the east sideline, Gate C. This was it. These columns, I'm the concessionaire, we're the concessionaires, and so you lived in just kind of this one hallway, one concourse. The space allowed you to build a 40-yard bar. Who even thinks about that? A 40-yard bar, right? This was the world we lived in. Ramps gone, right? So you have this entire other concourse to traverse. We still have concessions, right? But it allowed us to put in markets. There are 18 of these markets. Doors are closed. We just had a game in the building. So 18. So they're everywhere. 500, 400, everywhere. 300, 200. And then you go in, you grab your popcorn, you grab your hot food and cold. So it's not just cold food. Hot food, cold food, beer, pay, gone, and you're out.
You have more than 30,000 fans of a 70,000 seat arena that are above suite level.
Yep. We have more than probably any other NFL stadium. We built in 75, right? We opened in 75. Yeah. So we have a lot, we have 30,000 plus in our terrace. Terrace are our heart and soul season tickets, right? Those are the people that have been around for a long time and they never get taken care of in renovations. And this renovation took care of the 600 level just as much as we did the 100 and 200 in the premium. Everybody benefits. From a fan experience, everybody benefits by making this state building better. I gotta tell you, look up, right?
Oh, it's
look up.
It's such a beautiful scene, right?
Look up. In 1967, 8, and 9, there are guys with pencils and protractors, right? And there's one other building in the world, that is like this, the Houston Astrodome, and it fits inside.
It fit in here, yeah.
Right? So you had one other thing to look at, and they built it so big and so spacious and so beautiful.
As you look ahead, you'd think with $500 million renovation, there's nothing else you need to do right now. But as you look to the future, what it means for the Dome, what it means for the city of New Orleans.
The competition's harder now than ever before. I mean, we used to be in a rotation. Now it is a battleground for college football playoffs, for everything, for Super Bowls, for Final Fours. It is such a battle. It's such a competitive environment. So you had to have this building get to where it is. And right now, I kind of look at this building as a blank canvas. We've seen a lot of open spaces. We're like, all right, fans, tell us where you want to go. Where are you going to congregate? And then we'll follow you. So it's kind of a unique blank canvas to me. But yeah, we're always going to be working to make it better, make the experience better, because it's so easy. And we're just talking about NFL and other things for people to sit at home. You got to make this experience unique.
That's our show for this week. Remember, you can watch anything LPB anytime, wherever you are, with our LPB app.
That's right, and you can catch LPB news and public affairs shows, as well as other Louisiana programs you've come to enjoy over the years. And please, like us on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
For everyone at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Karen LeBlanc.
And I'm Dorothea Wilson. Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Support for Louisiana, the state we're in, is provided by
Entergy Louisiana is strengthening our power grid throughout the state. We're reinforcing infrastructure to prepare for stronger storms, reduce outages, and respond quicker when you do need us, because together we power life.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana.
And by Visit Baton Rouge and the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and viewers like you. Thank you.